Hello and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders might shy away from. And we believe here that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I'm your host, Jeff Ma. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, Mohammed Anwar. Hey, Mo, how's it going?
It's been good, Jeff.
Awesome. And as you know, we're here to have conversations and hear stories with real businesses, real people, real stories. And today, our guest is the co-founder and CEO of Evolve Consulting, Eric Neef. In addition to his role at Evolve, he's also passionate about improving the gap in our American education system and closing the gender income inequality gap that also exists in corporate America. I'm really excited to talk about all those things. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Eric. How are you doing today?
Doing well. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Absolutely. And I don't know, I kind of consider like Mo, you're here today. I always have to give, because nowadays we do shows where I'm typically solo hosting, but today I've brought you in. Mo, why are you here today? Why are you joining me today?
I'm here because of Eric. And, I had this amazing opportunity to meet Eric through LinkedIn, and we got in touch with each other. And I feel like since then, we've hit it off because we're so well aligned on the culture of love and the values that we aspire for our businesses and our team members and our customers that I'm incredibly excited to be here because I feel like Eric is a living example of a leader who believes in culture of love and practices that in his organization. And I'm excited to have him share his story with us.
Oh, Eric, those are some high expectations set for you today. How are you feeling about that?
Well, thank you, Mohammed. It's good to be here. We've had this culture of love without not knowing what to call it, although the name of our company does spell love backwards. When I came across the book back in, I think it was December, and I read that and I thought, this is great. This book and these individuals I've got to know pretty well over the past few months are really able to put this into a format that can almost be a playbook for how we're running our business. And like Mohammed said, when we were able to connect via LinkedIn and email and build a relationship and get to know each other, it's great to be building our companies side by side and learning from each other as we go.
Awesome. Absolutely. So, Eric, if you could start us off, I always like to start from a place of passion and purpose. Tell me about your passion. How did you get to that passion today?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that we're passionate about. One is really just loving our team members, starting by calling them team members, not employees. Philosophy I learned a long time ago by reading something from Richard Branson, where if we love our team members, they in turn love our clients. So we start out thinking about things that way. But the real passion and inspiration for the business started out, at this point, it's probably 8 years ago when I was in a senior executive role at a different company, and I saw a female aspiring executive almost get passed over for a promotion due to being out on maternity leave and missing some objective criteria. I had previously written a big, hairy, audacious goal for myself that was to make a positive influence on the world by being in a position or authority, being in a position of power or authority where I could make material change. So when I was in that situation and I saw that happen, or almost happen, I should say, I thought, this is my purpose. This gives me an opportunity. And over the past years, that's evolved from just gender equality in pay to equity across the organization. And when I say that, the difference in example that I use is equality across the organization means, for example, if everyone needs to have a scissors to cut paper, everyone gets a pair of scissors. Equity means finding out if there's any left-handed people that need a left-handed scissors. So my passion became inclusion, which starts by getting people included across all different groups, not the 3 colleges that I and my co-founders went to where all the people look and sound like us. but to branch out into other universities to begin with. Creating an environment of equity where people have what they need to be successful in their jobs. Mohammed said the opportunity to see the office space we're building out. It includes an area for neurodiverse individuals. So that's just one example of a way we're doing things to create equity across the organization. And then diversity is just a measurement of how well we're doing on the first two.
Yeah, I loved visiting Eric and seeing his office space. And when he introduced me to the neurodiverse section that they're envisioning, I was very, very much like impressed, inspired, and sold on the concept that, okay, this is for real. Like Eric is really taking this seriously and building an inclusive environment for all elements of diversity and people from all backgrounds. So I was very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Eric, talk a little bit about your personal kind of journey here. So like what brought you, personally into this place that you now occupy today?
Wow, that's a big question. Like life, upbringing, background.
Yeah, any of that would be. I mean, I want to get to know you a little bit. I want to get to just pick your brain, get in there.
Sure. So I grew up on the East Coast, and I went to a predominantly white Catholic affluent private college. So when I came out of college, I went into work in the Big Five consulting firm with a lot of those similar people from similar colleges, and pretty much spent the first, I'm going to say 10, 12 years of my career working between mid-Atlantic East Coast and Denver, Colorado, very non-diverse areas. And then I found myself almost 12 years ago moving to Dallas, Texas, which is a little bit more diverse as a place to work, but still not having the opportunity to be exposed to some of the things that have become a passion of mine. So I am very fortunate to have married a woman who knew a lot of these things and doesn't impose those things all at once on other people. But she and I have grown together over the past almost 12 years. We're raising 3 beautiful children that are 9, 7, and 5. And as I started raising them when they were 2 or 3, and I watched my children not see things until they were getting to the 6, 7, 8 years that they were being told by other children. And I specifically recall being at a daddy-daughter camp out, and my daughter was describing one of her good friends, and she has very dark skin, and that wasn't a deciding factor. My daughter was describing her shirt and her speed, and I thought that was it really caught my attention about, I think it was 4 years ago. I think she was 5, maybe 6, and I thought that's a beautiful thing, that my daughter's being raised in a way that she has no inherent blind spots, and how can we apply that to the workforce and our lives and extend it outside of just what we do in our day and our work. So yeah, that's kind of the background and who I am.
I know that you also do a lot of work and have a lot of passion around gender equality in the workplace. How did that come about in your life, or what presented that passion for you?
Yeah, so that was a story I alluded to earlier, but my business partner and co-founder and I were in a promotion review meeting, and one of the top performers by subjective criteria was almost passed over because she missed some objective criteria. She just happened to be out for 3 months on maternity leave. And when I saw that almost happen, and it was my business partner that noticed it and spoke up, and she ended up getting the promotion, and that was great. But I realized if he hadn't have spoken up, how much more often would this have happened? And when we started the company, we agreed we were going to pay across gender lines with equally based on capability and skill set. And the first person that we well, even before I say that, we decided we're going to ask people what they want to earn, not what they do earn, because the beginning of gender inequality, but also racial inequality and other inequality in pay starts with asking the question, what do you make? And that just becomes a systemic recurring issue of paying them more than they're currently making. But if they're starting at a lower number, it creates an unfair disadvantage. So the first person we tried to bring in happened to be a young female who we were fully prepared to pay a lot more than she asked for. And we repeated the question, not what do you make, what do you want to make? And she told us the same number. So we offered her more, and she really didn't know what to do. But it was a good
Wow.
experience. It was a
Cool.
good experience, and one we've repeated numerous times. And I don't keep track. We do have someone that keeps track of how often we do that, because we do want to be able, when we get bigger, to be able to report on things like how we've bridged that gap. But I want it to continue to be genuine and not done as a way to, it's not for marketing or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, now that we got to know you a little better, I want to bring it over to Evolve. And I think, while we're in different businesses, I like as Mo mentioned at the front, there's a lot of similarities in the types of things we're trying to do in the workplace. And so I have a lot of just curiosity around that journey, trying to bring culture to the forefront, trying to make sure culture it's tricky, right? It's not easy. And so I'm curious, what are some of the, high level to start ways that you practice and adopt and kind of apply culture within the walls of Evolve? So what are some of the intentional things you've been doing?
Yeah, it's that's a very interesting topic to me, because I didn't realize the paradox in this statement. I realize the paradox now. I did not realize it when I used to say this, but I've never been a fan of forced fun or forced culture. So I was very passionate in the beginning of starting the company of not creating the culture, but letting the culture evolve from the people we hire. And then we probably about a year ago hired a really smart Ivy League guy who came in and wrote us a Glassdoor review that said this is a really unique hiring approach. They say they don't create the culture, they let the team members create the culture for the company, but they have a very ambiguous way of interviewing and hiring, such that I didn't know if I was getting a call to get an offer or to be told I didn't make the cut. And I can't articulate as well as he did, but his background in education caused him to write this really interesting paradoxical review. And it was a very positive review of how we screen for things that we don't have written down on paper that have led to people that are fun. I've heard recently, the past month, which I love hearing, but we're not telling people to do it, that everyone's smiling all the time, which just makes me happy. I guess we probably subconsciously look, are people friendly on Zoom when we interview them? Now they're starting to come back into the office, but for the past 2 years. The other one I continue to hear is that people are genuinely nice. I'm really excited about that, but it is a paradox, because what we set out to do is evaluate people almost kind of like you did with the question you asked. We try to get to know people and their character first, and then their capability and skill set second. We feel like we can train and teach skill sets, but we can't really train people or teach people to not be self-serving or mean to each other. That's something that's pretty bred into us throughout our childhood and upbringing.
So Eric, I have a question for you, just to challenge you a little bit. Do you think it's because you've hired people who smile a lot, or is it your environment that makes them smile a lot?
I don't know. This is new to me since I last saw you or talked to you. It's a chicken and the egg. Do a few of us smile, and that led to people smiling. But I mean, if I walk down the hall now, ever since it's been pointed out to me the last month or 6 weeks, I do notice people are smiling, and I'm smiling back. So it matters. I mean, I don't come in here, our company is like any other company. It has difficult days, it has stressful days, but it's like a team. I don't call it a family, because we don't get, if family members are mean, you don't cut them out of the family, or most people don't. But I just told this story today. We're very intentional about our core values, and one of them is teamwork and collaboration. I didn't watch Squid Games, but I heard about a very interesting analogy there. I usually tell the story, since we live in Dallas, about A-Rod getting traded as the best shortstop to the Yankees, who also had Derek Jeter, and he became a third baseman. our core values, teamwork and collaboration. You can be a team pulling in the same direction, but if you're not all collaborating, it really doesn't work.
I'm going to throw it out there. I think it has a lot to do with the leadership, right? Because having met you, having met the leaders at your organization, Eric, you're one that makes everybody feel welcome. And all your staff, your team members, your guests, and including, when we showed up, we were met with, at the hotel with a gift basket, and we were never anticipating that. And you made us feel home, like it was home. You made us feel comfortable. We came into your office. You gave me a hug. And I saw that extend to all your other team members as well. And so I'd have to say, whether you want to believe it or not, I think your leadership and you personally as the CEO of the company has a lot to do with the culture of the company. So I want to give you that credit. And from my observation as a third party and as a visitor who was embraced inside of your organization, just having that short visit, I can naturally see why people are smiling and they're happy. And I think recruiting is definitely an aspect that you guys are doing a great job, but I think you're also doing an amazing job setting the tone as the top CEO of the company. And I want to give you that credit and kudos to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We got that idea from your book, and in particular, our team all read your book when they heard you were coming, not just the people that you were meeting with. And it was actually Aubrey who said, we should do this. It's a good idea. Give a gift basket, a gift bag. And I'm glad that made a big impact. And I'm glad our team takes things like this seriously. And hopefully I'm practicing one of our other core values, which is humility. We don't want to be taking credit for the things that, we didn't invent this stuff. So thank you, though. I appreciate the compliment.
No worries. I was going to ask you, this concept of love and love as a business strategy, or the culture of love, which you were naturally practicing in your organization. And now that you put a label to it, how is it being received by your team, your customers, or have you seen reactions because you talk about it more openly, or what's been your experience, Eric?
I think I laugh because my personal experience is after having your book at my disposal, it gives some validity to what we were setting out to do and what I've said. I'm not going to lie, in the beginning, I got some criticism that this was too soft and mushy of an approach. And I don't know if this will come across or if it's a mirror image, but I'll hold up a card with our business name on it and show when I started and came up with the name, and it's love spelled backwards. I distinctly remember a conversation that's goofy, that's corny. Goofy was the term that was used. So I dialed it back for a little bit until I still told everyone on the interviews, but I didn't make it core to who we were. So I think now, especially after your visit and people getting the book, I don't know if you know this, but we give the book to everyone on their first day when they start. They get 2 books now. Cool. Yours and one that we've been giving all along. I think it gives some credibility to a philosophy that we had, and probably didn't have much organization around what that meant. It was maybe a purpose without a plan. And now people take it a little more seriously.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm curious, a lot of it's great to see that so much of this formed, in some ways from what you're saying organically, just through the desire. What have you done in your mind? Maybe it's like values or mission statements. Like what are some of the intentional parts? I think a lot of people want to know, like, even if it's not, one-to-one aligned to what the book says or what the right, terminology is, what in your mind did you do, as intentionally as possible along this journey here?
Yeah, so the other book that I referenced is one we had read about 10 years ago. And two of the key things I took away from it then, and I've read it probably 20 times, but it talks about vulnerability and transparency. So being transparent about mistakes you might make, or the fact that we're human, and being vulnerable for feedback and hearing criticism. And it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people know that you're willing to accept feedback, they give it to you. So we start out with that as kind of the premise. Let's practice this in our day to day, and let's hear what people have to say. That intentionality has bled over into core values as a specific thing. So I mentioned, I kind of fumbled around the original mission earlier when I talked about having material impact on the world. But we set out on a mission to create a consulting firm that changes the world with the foundation of love. And that was written on my whiteboard before I found this book. And I think I left it there for when you came to our office, Mohammed. I don't remember if I pointed that out to you or not, but that culture of transparency has become fun because we have 5 core values. But one of our team members was asked to do the presentation of core values at one of our all hands meetings. And he had a funny way of saying, we actually have 9 core values. We just mashed them up into 3 words, 2 sets of 2 words, and then individual words. But what makes me laugh about that is it was great feedback. In some companies, people wouldn't have been comfortable saying that. He was having fun teasing me. Mohammed's heard this gentleman speak, talking about birthdays and other things, and he's just a fun guy. But I took that comment somewhat seriously to realize if someone looks at those values and says they're intended to be 5, but there are 9 words, we must not be explaining them well. So I've gone through a couple of them, and they're very intentional. So I talked about inclusion, equity, and diversity. That's 3 words. Teamwork and collaboration, and I've already explained the intentionality behind that. It's not just about working as a team, but it's about collaborating together as individuals to make an effective team. The one I hadn't mentioned yet is honesty and integrity. As you asked earlier about personal life, I learned that from watching my, at the time, 5-year-old daughter receive the character award at school, and they defined the character award as something they give to a student who does the right thing when no one's looking. The core value of honesty and integrity is, a lot of companies say honesty and it's just something they stick on the corporate wall. Honesty is what you tell someone when they ask you a question. You tell them the truth. Integrity is doing the right thing when there's no one there asking you the question. And then humility I mentioned, and the last one is passion. So when Milan said that about how many words there were, we've made an intentional effort to be more vocal about the meaning behind those words and why they're in the order they're in. Why does honesty come before integrity? Why does teamwork come before collaboration? Why does inclusion come before equity, and both before diversity? So yeah, it's been an ongoing journey, and that's something I've also learned more from you people, all of you individuals as people, more than I have from reading the book. But it is a journey. It's not something that we had made, put on the website, put on the walls, and just be done with. We talk about before every quarterly meeting. We talk about before every all hands meeting. And in a couple of weeks, we're sending the team member survey out. It's literally on a platform called Employee Surveys, which I don't like, but it's our team member survey. And one of them asks, to tie that back to the questions that are pretty standard in corporate surveys, but how are we living out our core values as it relates to this question and that question?
Awesome. Eric, in conversations with you, you were sharing with us some of the benefits and programs you've instituted for your team members. And I was quite inspired by hearing some of the vulnerable trust you've taken in instituting some of these programs, especially like your leave policy. Would you be willing to share with us what it is and how you found results from that leave policy?
Yeah, that's a fun one. And we did take your advice. I think I told you we were going to do this, but we followed through on it, and we got rid of our non-compete and non-solicitation agreements for the same reason that we talked about. Those are things that we put in place because we thought we were supposed to. And at the end of the day, we're asking people We haven't officially said sign an ethics agreement, but we're asking them to abide by an ethics agreement, which is to do the right thing. And we employ a lot of technologists who tend to have a mind of gaming, and I don't mean video games, but like how to write code and solve problems. And when I vetted the idea with them, I was fascinated by the response, which is if you give me a contract, I'm figuring out ways to get around it, whether I want to or not. If you ask me to do the right thing and I shake your hand, I'm going to exceed that expectation. So that led to just April 21st, we had our quarterly meeting, and we didn't have the prop to rip the contract up, but we said we're officially ripping up the non-solicit and non-compete clauses, and we're just going to ask you to do the right thing. But specifically to the one you asked about, another kind of uphill battle in the beginning, I didn't think it was such a crazy idea to do unlimited vacation. I got pushback from our benefits team, HR benefits team, those that administer the benefits, the company we use for that. And fortunately, people agreed to at least give it a try. I think the story you might have heard was the person that at the end of the year, when we had a very small team at the time, I think we might have had 12 or 15 people, turned out to be at the very top of the amount of production from billable hours and revenue generated. She also was at the top of the most vacation days. And it was fascinating to see because she was someone that quietly would take a Friday and a Monday. At one point took a stretch for a honeymoon. She took, I think it was 3 weeks actually consecutively, but no one noticed because she did such great work in 4 days of this week and the 4 days of that week. But when it was entered in the time system, we thought this is exactly why this works. She took a lot of good time for good purpose. She recharged, she got married, she went on a nice honeymoon, but she at the same time exceeded performance in her job. And beyond that, we have tons of other examples, but people don't abuse it. People enjoy it. They like the freedom to be able to work when they can. We like the engagement outside of normal hours. So I have kind of been a anti work-life balance philosopher. I think that means both have to be equal, but in the consulting world, the reality is there are weeks where you have hard deadlines and things have to get done and we work hard. We're very fortunate. We have some really good clients. One of them in particular gives random days off, 4-day weekends after a quick push. So we follow suit and give that particular team the day off. Unlike the old days that we grew up in, they don't have to come sit in the office doing nothing to be seen because it's not an Evolve holiday. And people really enjoy that. And we really enjoy the fact that no one's taking advantage of it at currently 117 team members.
I love that.
Eric, why? Yeah, I heard that, Jeff, and I was like, okay, this has to be shared with the world today. I was also going to ask you, Eric, traditional consulting services firms and many other organizations out there, why do you think companies are resistant or hesitant to give that level of flexibility? What do you think comes in the way of that?
I think at a high level, some of the pushback that I got stemmed from a lack of inherent trust, which would be contrary to the core, not value, but the root of our name, Evolve. If we're going to love people, let's start by trusting them. How do we say we love you, but sign this agreement and you only get 2 weeks off? We're not a not-for-profit. We will one day, I'm sure, have to have the hard conversation with unlimited PTO doesn't mean you come to work and go away for 3 months or 6 months and we did have to spend a lot of time and money with all the legal implications of maternity, paternity leave, military leave. So there are some guardrails and guidelines to make sure everything is legal, compliant, and fair. But I think we just took an opposite approach of let's start with love and trust and build back into the guardrails and the requirements. And I think, I guess at a simplistic level, most companies must start with, here are the guidelines and guardrails, and let's just put that in place for everyone across the board.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. We're trying something new here. We're trying a 4-day work week at Softway, and we've been experimenting over the last 2 months, taking alternate Fridays off, and then consecutive Fridays off. And now this month we're doing 2 Fridays off and 2 no meeting Fridays, just so that we can see the learnings. And then we're hoping to institute a 4-day work week policy at Softway as a result. And so far, we're having a lot of learnings. We're recognizing where we can do better and how we need to change our mindsets around a 4-day work week. But taking inspiration from you and how you instituted the unlimited leave, you're like, okay, let's do it. Let's try the 4-day work week. So we'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah,
So
I'd love to hear how that goes. There's structure. I can even feel myself moving in my chair that I don't relate to in terms of the one day here that